Hello there, and welcome to my channel, Novice Modelling in the Midlife Crisis. My name is Andy, and obviously for the last few videos I've been talking about my plans to make a diorama featuring Rommel and his captured AEC armoured command vehicle, and an assortment of other vehicles that I've actually acquired on the 135 scale. And I thought I'd take the opportunity to run you through this rather interesting book, which is provided by AK Interactive. It's called the D.A.K.PROFILE Guide, Africa 1941 to 43. And as you can see, this is the 4th edition. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold coming, I think. So anyway, let's just quickly run through this guide. Basically, it gives you a lot of details and colour options on different ways to paint up armoured vehicles and some of the armoured vehicles that are actually in use during this campaign, and their correct configurations and their correct paint schemes. So I thought it'd be kind of fun, because this is obviously something that I'm going to be using to aid my diorama when I come around to build it. I'm going to skip most of the actual text because, well, it'd take us hours and hours to get through this, and I'm just going to basically skip to the chase, which is what we want to look at, and it's basically the vehicles. So we start off obviously with motorbikes, and we've got BMW R12, an R75, a DKWN Z350, a Zundap KS600. Obviously these are all really clean and undirty, which is quite unusual for the Africa campaign. And we move on here, we've got another BMW R35, we've got a Zundap KS750 with a sidecar. That's probably quite familiar to most people. We've got the R75 BMW with a sidecar. And we've got another Zundap 750 as well. So I mean, obviously we've got some of these with Wehrmacht markings, and we've got some of them with Luftwaffe identity tags. And then we're going to move on to another Zundap, this one being the K800. A lot of these are actually unknown units, but some of them they do actually specify particular units that they're attached to. Here we have the famous SDKFZ2 Kettenkrad. From Libya, July 1942. This one isn't in a particularly interesting desert scheme. We've got some Italian vehicles. We've got a Motor Guzzi here with a rather fancy looking machine gun attachment. Gilera Marte, unknown Reggio Esercitio unit. This one's sort of green and brown. We've got another Motor Guzzi, a Motor Guzzi Trials, which is basically a sort of tricycle. Little storage compartment on that. Looks quite an interesting one. I wonder if you can get a model for that. Benelli, a Gilera, all these amazing American Italian bikes. I wouldn't mind having one of these one day. I'm not really into motorbikes, but if I was, I think I'd have to get one of them. Move on to the familiar form of the Type 82 Kubelwagen. Again, this is an unknown unit. We've got one with an MG42, Tunisia 1943. We've got one with an interesting camouflage pattern here of sand over grey, so we can probably assume that the grey is what it was transported over to the African desert in. We've got one here which appears to be sort of a worn, faded sort of desert camouflage, or obviously it could just be a roughly painted one. This one's got the red cross on it, signifying it was used for medical transportation. Then we go on to some staff cars. We've got an Alfa Romeo 2500 Colonial, which is quite a commonplace vehicle for the Italians and the Germans as well, it would seem. We have a Horsch 901 Type 40, which we have a what's in the box on, because I've got one of these. Horsch 901 Type 40 again. It's a pretty standard troop and staff car for the Germans. Here we have a Mercedes-Benz Type 170, a Ford WA1, not familiar with that vehicle, an Opel Olympia, another Ford WOA2. I'm not sure whether, because Ford did actually obviously have a factories in Germany, so I'm not quite sure whether these are German produced vehicles or whether these are captured ones from the British and Commonwealth armies. Here we go on to one of my favourite vehicles, a Steyr Type 1500. We have a captured Willys MB Jeep, which is attached to the 15th Panzer Division. These were well favoured, if you know, if the Germans could capture one of these off British colonial troops, or later on the Americans. They were very happy, because this is obviously one of the best off-road vehicles you could have. We've got the Steyr 1500 Commander Wagon. This is General von Arnin's car. It was captured in Tunisia 1943, and it's actually preserved in a museum in Eastbourne in England. Moving on here, we've got the Mercedes-Benz L1500. Never seen a model for that one. We have a Horsch 108. We have another Horsch 108 here. A Fanneman Granite 25H. That's done as a an ambulance. I've not heard of one of those as a model either. That would be an interesting one to get hold of. Here we have medium heavy vehicles, so I think this is going to be trucks. Obviously during the African campaign, both the Italians and the Germans, and probably indeed the British and Commonwealth units, basically scavenged any vehicles they could get their hands on. So a lot of these are actually British and Commonwealth vehicles that are actually pressed into service for the Germans. As we can see here, we've got a Bedford OYD. This is an Auto Caro Sahariano. This is an Italian truck. It's kind of bizarre looking, but obviously the big wheels are going to help it go over the sand. We have a Ford V8 G917, probably captured British. The AEC Matador. This is obviously a British captured vehicle again, or colonial. We have a Ford EO18T. This is from Libya 1941 with some interesting faded camouflage pattern there. We have a Fiat 626NM from an unknown transport unit in 1942 Libya. This is obviously a Italian vehicle that's been utilised by the Afrika Korps. Here we move on to another Ford V8 917. This one's attached to a Panzer division in Tunisia. The rather famous Opel Blitz, plenty of these. 21st Panzer Division in Libya 1941. We have an Opel Blitz ambulance. We have a Morris Commercial CDSW 6x4. That's obviously another British truck that's been captured. This one's displaying a red cross. We have the famous Austin K2Y, otherwise known as Katie, from the famous film that I can't remember the name of. Oh well, it skips me. I've actually got one of these by Airfix, which I don't know, I'm not quite sure whether to do it as a German captured unit or whether to do it as the British one. From the film... Oh, Ice Cold in Alex. Ice Cold in Alex, there we go. We have the Bedford MWD. It's kind of a nice looking truck. You see they've got some German markings pushed onto it there. Here's a familiar one for me because I actually have one of these models by Roden. This is the Opel Blitz Omnibus with the painted out windows or metal shuttered windows and a roof rack. A Bussing Nag 4500. I've got one of these as well, made by AFV Club. A Bussing Nag 4500 standard truck. I think I might have one of these. I've got quite a lot of German trucks actually. And we have the Opel Blitz Omnibus. This is the windowed version, and guess what? I got this one as well. That's another Roden model. I'll be doing what's in the boxes for a load of these if you're interested. Here we have a Lancia 3RO NM truck. I think I got one of these as well. Can't quite remember. I do have an Italian large truck. We've got a Krupp weather forecast unit. I think I've got a Krupp radio truck. And we have a Krupp L3H163. Just a standard truck. I think I'm pretty sure I got one of those too. Yeah, I kind of like the trucks. So here we go, moving on to armoured fighting vehicles. And we got the SDKFZ Panzer, the SDKFZ 222, small armoured car. I got one of these. And the SDKFZ 221, which is a slightly lighter armoured version with just a MG, I'm quite sure that's a 34 or 42. We've got the SDKFZ 223 with the attached aerial antenna. We have an SDKFZ 222, a company unknown from Libya 1942. And we have a SDKFZ 221 with a 2.8 centimetre Panzer bush, some sort of anti-tank weapon that's been probably field attached to this one. We have the SD.K.PROFILE 263 8-rad with the radio antenna on again. That's from the 15th Panzer Division, Libya 1942. I've got one of these. In fact, I've actually got this in Tammy with this exact marking on it here, the SD.K.PROFILE 232 8-rad. Interesting, it's from the 21st Panzer Division. Didn't know that, that's interesting. And we have an SD.K.PROFILE 231 8-rad as well. This one's mounting a slightly more menacing looking gun. Not exactly sure what the main differences are here. It's got a spare wheel slung on the back as well. Moving on again, we have another SD.K.PROFILE 232 with a rather funky camouflage pattern on it. Looks a little bit like a tiger. Interesting aerial antenna there as well. Here we have the SD.K.PROFILE 233 out 220 164 Lichter Afrika Division, Tunisia 1943. This one's had its, well, I'm not quite sure whether it's had its turret removed, but I think this has got a 75 or 105mm howitzer in it. We have the Auto Blinder AB40. This is an Italian armoured car with the huge wheels. I think I might have to get one of these because these look really cool. Again, we've got another Auto Bleeder, 132nd Division, Gazala, Libya 1942. Obviously, there's loads of information on these and you know where they fought and what have you. Here we have the famous AHCC Dorchester 4x4 armoured command vehicle. This is the original British colours. Obviously, I have this, and this is going to be the centrepiece of my diorama when I get to build it in about 6 months. We have a captured Daimler Dingo, unknown unit, Libya 1942. These are quite well used in the, I think it was the Australian and the New Zealand contingents of the 8th Army. We have a Marmon Harrington Mark II. This has been taken on, however, the 21st Panzer Division in Tobruk. I forget, I think these are actually a South African or Australian adaptation. Probably, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it is. It is captured South African Marmon, yeah. So it's a South African division. I'm pretty sure they're actually made in South Africa as well. This is a bit of a bizarre one. SD.K.PROFILE 254 Sora Artillery Regiment. This is a sort of tracked and tired vehicle. Never seen one of them before and don't think I'd want one. It's kind of ugly. Here we have the SD.K.PROFILE 25003 Eagle, which is actually Eagle. This is one of Rommel's transports. Rommel's personal vehicle, Liberty 1942. He also had one called Grief, which was Griffin, and another one which name escapes me. Here we have a SD.K.PROFILE 251 again. This one's attached to Artillery Regiment 155 of the 21st Panzer Division. It's got quite an interesting camouflage pattern now with the original grey and then sand on the front. Here we have another 250. This one is General Kleeman's vehicle of the Lichter Afrika Division. Bir Hakim, Libya 1942. It's got the German flag attached to the front of that one. Nearly there. It's all interesting, I'm sure. Here we have the Grief, or the Griffin, another one of Rommel's personal transports. And then we're going on to a SD.K.PROFILE 253. Again, this one's got the aerial antenna attached. And here we have an SD.K.PROFILE 252 from a Panzer Artillery Regiment in Tunisia 1943. This is a kind of shortened down one. I believe this is a transporter for shells. You can see it's got a trailer on the back. Another 250. This one's got a 2.8cm Panzerbusch anti-tank gun attached to it, I think that is. Now we're going on to the famous 251, the long wheelbase version. We have another one here with, this looks like it's got some added wooden armour plate on it as well. It's got a light anti-tank gun and a machine gun on the front. It's a rather nasty looking vehicle. Another 251-10. It's got another 37mm pack gun attached to it. Probably field fitted. Again, you can see a lot of the original grey European colourings on that one. Here we have another 251. Again, interesting pattern variations, colour variations here with an original grey with mottled sand on top. Here we have one in the original European colours. This one's got the radio equipment in it as well. And here we have another one. They've actually modified the radio antenna to put a sunshade on for that one. It's kind of interesting. It's got an interesting unit marking on it there with a map of Africa on it. Here we go on to an SDKFZ11. This is a transporter, probably for equipment. Another one here, another 251, Panzer Grenadier Regiment 69, 10th Panzer Division, Tunisia. A photograph underneath. Again, it's interesting variations of the colour of this, the camouflage scheme. It basically tells you that very rarely you find two vehicles that are actually painted the same colour, which I find quite fascinating. You know, bearing in mind I kind of have quite a lot of these vehicles. I don't want to paint them all the same colour because it would look boring as well at the end of the day. Here we have a unknown Luftwaffe 8.8cm flak battery, Libya 1941. So it's got the original marking, original grey, with some just some very fine added brown, or it could be rust, I suppose. I'm not quite sure. Quite like this one here, SDKFZ7. Another flak regiment attached to the 15th Panzer Division in Libya, March 1942. Look at this one here. It's all sort of like a dirty orange sort of colour, and it's very interesting. It's a very interesting camouflage scheme, that one. I might have to get one of these and try and replicate that one. Here we have the 9-ton SDKFZ. This one's attached to Panzer Regiment 5, 21st Panzer Division, Tunisia, December 1942. You know, these ones could haul a lot. I mean, you could probably, I think these ones could actually pull a tiger as well. And we on to some M3 half-tracks. Generally captured by the, captured from the Americans at Kasserine Pass. Or obviously there were ones in British and Commonwealth usage as well. This particular one was Tunisia in March. You can see some of the items have still got the original sort of American olive drab on it. This one, another Tunisian one in 1943, still actually has the American star and this moonlight thing on it. And it has a red cross symbolising that this is actually an ambulance type vehicle, medical vehicle. Here we have a M3 half track with 3.7cm M25. Again, we've got the original olive drab with some hastily put on brown paint there. This is weird. I mean, this is just artistic license gone mad. This one's a Panzer Grenadier Regiment 86 from Tunisia again. Olive drab with just splodges of yellow paint all over it. It's kind of fascinating. You know, I mean, what they actually did. Moving on to some tanks now. We have a Panzer 1, unknown Panzer regiment. These are obviously sort of used very early on in the campaign. Another one is probably its original green. Another Panzer 1 here. And a movable turret from the Lichter Division, Libya 1941. Obviously, the later we go, the more sort of we go from Panzer 1s and Panzer 2s to Panzer 3s and Panzer 4s. A nice frontal view here of a couple of Panzer 1s. Again, you can quite often see the original colouring from underneath, because obviously the sand in the desert played hell with the paint when the wind whipped up. And another Panzer 1 from the Lichter Division. Again, same sort of time but different colourings. We're moving on now to a Panzer 2. This one's just in its original grey. Again, Libya 1941. Didn't have time for it to get painted after it came off the boat. Another Panzer 2, two more Panzer 2s. I mean, look at the contrasting colours there. This one's almost a sort of pale, sort of dirty orange colour, and this is, well, it's like a deserty yellow over the grey with a lot of grey sort of showing through. It's really quite interesting. You've got a PI, which symbolises it's a pioneer unit. Moving on to here, another Panzer 2. very plain markings. This has had a good new coat of paint on it by the look of it. Now moving on to some Panzer 3s. Those two are very similar, but again you can see where the paint appears to be sort of worn off. This one looks intentionally painted in a sort of crisscross pattern on the turret. It's the 21st Panzer Division. It's got a load of aerial framings on it as well. Probably a commander's vehicle maybe. Another Panzer 3, this one's finished in like a brown and green. Again, Libya 1942. Another one with probably showing its original grey. That's an interesting one again, in brown and green. You know, when you're thinking about painting a Afrika Korps tank, how often would you think of doing one in brown and green? I mean, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have thought seeing this book. I mean, this one here looks almost like it's set up for the Eastern Front in a sort of very pale grey sort of colour. Fascinating. Fascinating. This one's like a very sort of goldy sort of yellow. It's got some branches and what excuse me, branches and whatnot, some sandbags by the look of it to give it a bit of extra armour. Then we've got a long barrel Panzer 3. Yeah, look at the difference in colourings here. It's quite mad. I never would have thought to paint an Afrika Korps this colour. It looks like it's in winter colourings almost. How bizarre. Another Panzer 3, I mean this one's really dark grey. You can see it's probably been painted at some point, or they've made an attempt to paint it, but it's just all worn off. Again, this is a sort of grey yellow. Now we're going on to some really bright yellow ones. A long barrel Panzer 4 from October 1942, El Alamein, Egypt. A short barrel from Tunisia 1943, so even though they had the long barrels in 1942, they're still using the short barrels in 43. And then we go to the later Mark 4s with the long barrel again. Tunisia, both Tunisia 1943, both kind of similar colorations, but different again. And we go on to one of the most famous tanks of the Second World War, the Panzer Mark 6 Tiger. This one's from Panzer Regiment 7 of the 10th Panzer Division, Tunisia, late 1943. Again, it's a sort of brown colour, sort of almost like a cup of coffee, that one. This one's orange. It looks orange. I have no idea what colour that is. Huh. Yeah. Oh, strange. It's got the Crouching Tiger here, which I believe is on the other side. Here we got some captured British and Commonwealth armour. M3 Stuart 1, Kampfstaffel der Oberschladers, the Panzer Army Africa. I think some of these are actually attached to Rommel's command unit. You kind of like them because of their high mobility. We've got some Matildas. This is a Matilda 2, Panzer Regiment 5. Lots of these were captured by the Germans, so a lot of them were forced into service against the British and Commonwealth troops. I love the design on this one. This is awesome. Green and desert. It actually says in here that they thought these swirls were kind of trying to sort of replicate wheels, because apparently a lot of wheeled units, they didn't bother shooting at them, the British, because they just let them go. It was considered to be a waste of ammunition, so they're kind of assuming that they were trying to pretend that this was a wheeled unit. And we've got a universal Bren carrier with a 25mm Hotchkiss anti-tank gun. That's a bizarre looking thing, quite ugly. I don't want to replicate that. Then we have some Italian tanks. Again, the Italians were kind of mad with their sort of camouflage. This is M1441. El Alamein, Egypt 1942. It's pretty standard sort of desert camouflage colour. Here we have an M1139 with the 132nd Division Corvetti Ariete, Libya 1941, with some green on it as well. It's got two guns. It's probably a heavy machine gun, that. And then 1441 with a striped sort of olive green and off orange colour. It's quite an ugly looking contraption. An L335. I think these are what they call tankettes, I think these are. It actually looks quite a lot bigger than it actually is. The 32nd Reggimento Cari, 132nd Division Corazetta Ariete, Libya, 1941. Then we've got some more of these. This one's got a large trailer on the back of it. It's a rather interesting camouflage design. I mean, again, I wouldn't have expected to see that in 1941 Libya. I mean, obviously, if it's come from Tunisia, Tunisia was a bit greener, but again, it's kind of bizarre. Then we have the L335cc, Libya 1941. This is more of a sort of an assault gun along the lines of a Stug. Another one. We're going to move on to anti-tank guns here. We've got the famous Panzer, excuse me, 38T with a 7.62 centimetre pack called Armoured 3. Again, it kind of wouldn't look amiss on the steppes of Russia, that one. And again, here we've got another 38T, 7.62 centimetre pack 36 with a nice, interesting sort of grey and sand colour. And we have a green 4.7 centimetre pack TSF, a Panzer 1 chassis. This is the first type of anti-tank gun mounted on a tank that the Germans tried. Then we have the Lorraine Schalper, Panzer Artillery Regiment 155. This is mounted on a French carrier. I actually have one of these. They're actually quite rare. I don't have the gun, obviously. That's even rarer. Then we have a Stug 3, an early Stug 3 from Sonderverband 288. Bur Hakim, Libya, May 1942. Extra jerry cans, and you can see again the warm paint, streaky paint on this. This is a 15 centimeters SIG 33B. This is a artillery piece on a, I can't remember, I think this is a Panzer 3 chassis. Here we have a 7.5 centimeter pack 40/3. Again, we've got Desert with Brown. Sorry, this video's dragging on a little bit longer than I thought it was. This is a 7.62 centimeter Aufgrupp Selbstverteidigung Panzerjäger Ableitung 605-90 LLMA. This is a half track with a very basic protection with a 7.6 centimeter anti-aircraft gun, anti-tank gun, obviously. Here we have a, I don't recognise that one, 7.5 centimeter pack 42 on SDKFZ 131. Again, it's an anti-tank gun. Never really looked right, the early ones of these, until they got these Stugs. This is a longer barreled Stug 3, Aus B, Tunisia, February 1943. You know, what the hell is this in the desert? Bloody tugboat. This is a Landwasser Schelper, Pioneer Landungscompany, probably Libya, 1942. These were taken over to Africa to be used. I think they were trying to get behind the Gazala line. So there's 3 or 4 of these. You can actually get this as a model. I've seen it. Can't remember who it's by. It might be Roden. Not sure. And finally, we're on some artillery. This pain will end soon, I promise you. It's quite interesting though. Here we had a Ford CMP F15 with a Breeder 22065 mounted on the back. Here we have another CMP 15 with a 2 centimeter flak 30 mounted on the back again. This one has had the top of the cab taken away, so you can spin it around 360 degrees. Here we have a standard 10.5 centimeter artillery piece. And then moving on to a 15 centimeter, excuse me, artillery piece in standard colours. Then we have a 15 centimeter Schweres. I think it's probably quite a bit older, that one, by the look of it. Yeah. And then the Royal Ordnance QF 25 pounder. Apparently the British had a habit of leaving these behind when they got chased away by the Germans. We have a Q40mm Mark III. This is one of the standard weapons, standard anti-aircraft weapons of the British. The famous 7.5cm Pak 40 anti-tank gun. 2cm flak veiling. That's a quad mount. Another standard single 2cm Flug armoured cannon. And then a Breda 2065, so that's probably going to be an Italian. 1935. And moving on to the famous 88. This one's done in a sort of copper colour, quite interesting. With the 19th Flak Division. According to this, kill markings on the front, it actually took out a couple of boats as well. That's bizarre. And we have another 88 done in original colours with some very basic, probably crew applied camouflage. The same again on this one. There's the Lane Sharper, which I have one of these. So this is its standard use. It was basically an artillery tractor, and you can throw a few guys and some supplies in the back. This is quite rare. I've never seen. I've got one of these by a company I've never heard of, and I've never seen another one. So I mean, I think I only paid about 10 quid for it as well. So I'm quite happy to have one of those. You've got a 5cm anti-tank gun. Again, very pale sand colour. It's 3.7cm. I'm sure every model has had or got one of those. Another 7.5cm anti-tank gun. This one's nicely camouflaged. Again, it's not the standard sort of colours I kind of expect for Afrika Korps. We have an SDKFZ7 pulling its 88. Here we have another SDKFZ7. This one's got a quad anti-aircraft mount on it and a big trailer to carry its ammunition. And then we move on to Rommel's personal plane, a Feisler Stork FI 156C3 Tropical. I have one of these, but unfortunately it's the wrong unit. It's not the personal plane. You can see actually you've got here the stork flying over the map of Africa. Stork, 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 stork. And you're finally at the end. Well, if you managed it to the end there, well done. That's probably one of my longest videos I've ever done, and I've had to talk quite a bit there. And obviously, AK Interactive are quite famous for these sort of things. They do a lot of paints and dusts and weatherings and stuff, and these, I've got a bunch of stuff. So I mean, these are just ones that are Afrika Korps related. So obviously this one's a 6-pot, so you get 6 little pots of paint in here, like that. You know, and obviously this is going to be the basis of a lot of the colour designs we've got in here. That's a D.A.K. weathering set. Comes with filters, washes and streaking grime. We've got accumulated dust effects. Probably going to need about 25 tubs of that, I would have thought, if you're going to make a diorama. Africa dust effects and dust and dirt deposits. So there we go. Anyway, I hope you like this little video. It's kind of a book review, which is kind of different. Please like and subscribe and join me for my model building ride. I'll be back tomorrow. I promised I'm going to do some painting. So I'm going to do a review on my new airbrush, probably tomorrow morning. And I'm going to paint some stuff. Yeah, let's do paint. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll be seeing you.